All right, welcome back guys to part 2 of the beginner's guide to the gym. Once again, I'm here with Antonio, best qualified and best looking PT here. And today we're going to talk to you more about technique and gym etiquette in the gym.
We are essentially going to cover a few of the basics, points that are important for you to look out for, things that are going to make your gym journey and experience just that much better, that much focused. But of course, any questions that you have, if you want us to go into any more detail, feel free to just drop a comment while you're watching the video on any specific points that we have. Ask away, and I'm sure that we'll be able to boost it up with a little bit more knowledge.
Definitely. Antonio's going to take us through his push session, and considering I'm a weightlifter and don't do chest, I know I'm going to be sore after this.
The benefit is the fact that he's stronger than I am. So this is going to be a great session, and then maybe one day he gets me back in to do some Olympic lifting.
All right, well let's get started.
Let's get started.
So Antonio, why is technique important?
I think technique is probably the most important thing when it comes to training, simply because it's not just about doing things right, but technique will make sure the fact that you're targeting the muscle that you're supposed to be training. You want to make sure when you're doing squats that your quads and your glutes are the ones that are working. Bicep curls, that your biceps are the ones that are doing the work. If technique isn't primed properly and you don't understand the way your body works and how it should work, you're probably going to waste a lot of time and energy working the wrong things or letting the wrong things supplement, and that's where injuries, tears, sprains happen, because you're putting effort through parts of the body where you shouldn't be. That's not the technique more than anything else. Does technique matter more depending on what phase you're in and beginning versus the end of the set?
Yeah, good question. I'm going to say right off the bat, technique matters all the time, 100%. When you're starting out in the gym, you need to build that technique early on, so that way that's going to set you up for success, not just for improving strength and performance in the gym, but also reducing risk of injury. That's one of the biggest things why people take time off in the gym, is because not necessarily they have like a big injury, but maybe they have niggles down the line, back, knees, and then because they don't do anything about it apart from bed rest, when they return to the gym or returning to other exercises, that injury or niggle is just going to flare up again because they haven't addressed technique on their exercises and maybe not addressing some of the weaknesses they have in those smaller muscles. Now, someone who's, say, more advanced at lifting, technique is still important because they're going to be lifting heavier weights. You can't have any flaws in your technique where that's going to really impact how you perform, and obviously going to increase that injury risk rate. Now, in saying that, there's going to be some small tools that you can use, like momentum is a tool that you can use to maybe get a couple extra reps in an exercise. For example, a bicep curl. You're going strict form, just focusing on those biceps the entire time. But you're at the end of that set, let's see if we can get maybe 1 or 2 more. Just adding just a little bit of momentum while keeping your core braced, just to help you get this extra bite into those biceps. Can be really crucial. But we don't want to be over-reliant on momentum, especially if you're trying to grow muscle. So we talked about some of the benefits of why technique is so important. There's also a small flip side of that coin, and this is more particular for beginners who are just joining in, is that do not let the fear of improper technique cause you paralysis of exercise. If that's going to stop you from training, it shouldn't. If you are really worried about the technique, this is where investing yourself into a coach is going to be really powerful, because they're going to guide you every step of the way. But if you're always self-judging on technique from literally from the first exercise on a machine, am I doing this right every single time? That's going to cause you a lot of anxiety and paralysis on actually completing the set. So while technique is really important, don't let that stop you from actually just learning on the way. And you're not going to injure yourself from doing bodyweight movements or incredibly light reps. Injuries happen from multiple repetitions of doing improper technique.
Okay, ready? Push the elbows out. Push the elbows out as you come down. There it is. 3. 4. And you can go a little bit deeper. Okay. I know your mobility. There it is. Beautiful. 6. 7. Come on. Upper 8. Raise the core. 2 more. Upper 9. Elbows out. Down. Last one. Elbows out. Push, 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 push. Oh.
Are PTs or coaching only for beginners?
Not even a little bit. And the way that I want you guys to think about PTing or coaching is everything has a stage. You have your foundations, which are insanely important to learn technique from the get-go, because as Cameron said before, the idea is that you build a good technique foundation to make sure the fact that down the line, as you get stronger, fitter, and you start lifting more weights, that technique is then set up properly so you don't get injured, so that you're not in pain, and you can progress without all those drawbacks that tend to happen when technique isn't good. Then you have your intermediate phase, where weights start bumping up, you start lifting heavier, you start doing more complicated exercises. For these, technique is even more important, because any small mistake in technique in lighter weights is compounded when your body's struggling with heavier weights. Then you need a coach. Have a coach who keeps an eye on your technique, because now it's not about the big obvious things like your scapular retractions, but it's more when you're doing dips, making sure that the elbow is being pushed out and directly above the wrist, for example. A lot of things that you might not catch, very deep nuances in technique that are just going to help improve your performance. And then for advanced lifters who've been doing this for years, we tend to take care of our programs by ourselves, and that becomes really draining. Also, knowing when to change, knowing when to shift, it's always good to have an outside perspective. I've been coaching for years, I've been training for years, and I still use a coach. I have a coach, somebody who I look up to, not necessarily to teach me new things, but to give me an idea in perspective. Right? He's also been my coach has been in the game for 40 years. And so it gives me an understanding to try to understand, okay, there are things that I still don't know, but also as a PT, I spend so much of my time programming for clients and focusing on everybody else's health and fitness, that having somebody there for me helps remove some pressure from my own training, and I can just go and just get it done. Somebody who I can send videos to, and again, is willing to share maybe sometimes the things that I'm actively ignoring, because that tends to happen. We're tired. We're like, oh, you know what? It's fine. I'll get it. But he's always there to say, don't forget this. I know you know, but just a little reminder. Coaches are super important throughout your entire time. And then you have your competitions. Coaches who are like specified and specialists when it comes to bodybuilding, powerlifting, CrossFit, high rocks. Like having a coach for that is even more important, because then you have somebody who knows the rules, somebody who knows how to perform exercises optimally, and is there to help you achieve better numbers, better results, faster times. So I think coaches, always super, super important.
we talked a little bit about momentum and how we can use this as a tool to go beyond technical failure. Tell us more about what technical failure is and how it's going to be important to go beyond that technical failure.
Okay. Technical failure is just when your technique fails and you have to start cheating reps. Yes, especially when it comes to like really heavy exercises, stopping a technical failure is good because that way we're still ensuring the fact that we're working the right muscles and none of the joints, tendons, ligaments are being affected by then trying to cheat it and using things like your lower back or your hips or your rotator cuffs. Now, is there space to go past technical failure? Yes, especially when you're intermediate and advanced lifter. Doing things like partial reps at the lengthened part, like at the lengthened point, are insanely good for you. Because as we know, the lengthened part of the exercise is the most important part. It's where you get the most mechanical tension, and at that point is where the muscle's really growing. If, let's say we're doing bicep curls, and you can't get to the top anymore, like Cameron said, you can use a tiny bit of momentum as long as you're keeping certain things in check, like your core. Now, what happens when you get too tired to do even that? Even just doing half reps, making sure that you're going full stretch, up a little bit and back down, is going to give you the equivalent of a full rep when it comes to muscular growth. However, understand that this also depends on what phase you're in. If you're on a deep cut, you're tired, you're not recovering as fast, still pushing your body, trying to maintain that muscle mass, to that point where you're going even beyond technical failure, doesn't make sense. Make sure the fact that your form is perfect, protect your joints, protect your body, and save that energy to be able to perform reps properly down the line. If you're bulking, sure, as long as you've still got that mind to muscle connection to target the right thing without the unnecessary stabilizers or weaker parts of the body trying to get involved just to be able to get 1 to 2 more reps on your biceps. Elbows a little bit more forward, you get a little bit more out. There it is. 3. Explosive up. Shrug. Good, there it is. 5. Yes. Up 6. Beautiful. 7. Good. Back. Give me one more. Hit this hand. Yes.
That's like a light blinding.
Yeah, it really sucks. Okay. Anything we want? Does etiquette matter in the gym? And what effects does it have in the gym environment that people might not be aware of?
Absolutely. Gym etiquette is actually more important than you realize. Everyone is coming here for the same reasons at the end. Trying to be better in the version of themselves the day before. Now that's going to be different for everyone, whether it's trying to lose weight, it's trying to be stronger for their kids, it's trying to improve from their injury. Everyone's going to have a very different journey. So you want to make sure that the environment is going to be safe and comfortable for everyone. Doesn't mean you have to be friends with every single person in the gym, but it's about respecting their space. It's about putting your weights away, so that way the next person can come along, they can find the weight that they want, or it's not just in a complete mess around them. It's also about using the equipment and the space with integrity and intention. You don't want to be sitting on a machine for multiple minutes on end where you're just on your phone, not paying attention. You're using that equipment so you can actually gain something from exercise, not as like a rest period or a place to just scroll on Instagram. What do you find is your biggest pet peeve when it comes to gym etiquette?
I think it's simply not thinking about other people. I get we're here for our own reasons, so the gym can feel like what a selfish place. Take care of the equipment. You're essentially paying rent a month to use the space, to use the equipment. Be smart. Leave it tidy, leave it organized for the next person. If something breaks because you don't care for it, everybody else suffers from it, and people aren't able to then train and focus on their shit. So let's just be smart. Focus on taking care of the equipment. Focus on thinking about other people. Think about letting other people jump into the space and use it when you're taking a break. I think simply putting yourself in everybody else's shoes and realizing the fact that we're all here for the same reason, which is to better ourselves, is going to make a massive difference. So just be aware and don't treat this like it's your own personal thing. Everybody's here, everybody uses the space, just be mindful.
Right, so that brings us to the end of the video. I think we covered a lot on technique and hope you've really gained some value from this video. Antonio, do you think anything else you want to recap from the session?
Honestly, I think with the basics that we went over, I think is a good basis for you to start with. Like we mentioned, definitely important to try to get yourself a PT. I think it is now just about, now that you've understood the basics, and hopefully they make a little bit of sense, once you start applying them, you're going to notice that every exercise has its own individual technique that you need to try to master to make sure the fact that you're getting the most out of it, and therefore you're not wasting time.
Absolutely. And at the end of the day, like, there's no perfect technique. There's optimal technique, and we should always strive to be, trying to get the best out of the exercise. But, take like a squat. Everyone's going to have a slightly different hip width.
Exactly, different foot distance. It's down to, remember that everybody's unique. Anybody who tells you that exercise, and especially technique in the gym, is a one-size-fits-all is insanely wrong. Our muscles are different lengths with different heights, muscular insertions, or just everything is so different. Even just the energy and where you're going to feel it, that mind-to-muscle connection. So listen to your body, learn how to work with what you have, and get yourself a good qualified PT to ensure the fact that you're then chasing the optimal way to do things based on your particular body type.
Absolutely. And in part 3, we're going to talk more about progressive overload and how you can make the gym more sustainable and consistent for you. In the meantime, go check out the podcast we've done. If you want to hear more of our voices, you can hit the video up here. Antonio, thanks so much for joining us today.
An absolute pleasure. Thank you for inviting me, and look forward to seeing you guys soon.
Awesome. Thanks so much, guys.